All right, so I always forget to remind everybody to clean up after you use the saw. So next step is we're going to put these pieces together in this corner clamp machine right here. It's just a mechanical thing that locks the pieces together at the corner. By the way, I wanted to show you this. I decided to make the two sides of the canvas to have a short side and a long side just for clarity, because in the future when you're building canvases, I'd rather you see this method, because there's just certain things to pay attention to when you're building a canvas that has a short side and a long side. So here we go. I've got a short side piece right now. I'm putting it in this corner clamp here. And what you're going to see, there's a little gizmo down here that tightens everything up and it clamps the piece. What you want to check before you start clamping everything down is you want to make sure that this little channel that the wood sits right on top of here, make sure everything is clean, make sure there's no glue in there. Put the piece down, and then what happens is this piece right here kind of lines up with the corner joint that you're going to be making. So what I like to do is I'll tighten this one up just a little bit. I don't crank on it yet. So this is the short piece. Now I take a long piece and it goes in the other side here. Again, I'm gonna push it up so that it is close to or right against the other piece. Now, when I put these two pieces together, the long piece is sticking out just a little bit farther than the short piece. It's a little hard to see here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen this up and I'm going to back it down just a tiny bit. Now I'm going to clamp it a little harder, and now I'm going to go back to this piece. I'm going to unclamp it and I'm going to push it so that it's really hard against the long side, and now clamp this down. Now once I get these pieces and I have a joint here that is perfectly solid and the two pieces line up on the end, which should always happen. If you made the cuts correct on the saw, you should get a perfect joint like this. Now, once everything is in that state, you want to really clamp down on this good and hard with both. Actually, I use both hands to tighten this up. Righty-tighty, just remember that. Okay, so now everything is ready to go here. Now, what happens next? This is the fun part. So you're going to use a drill, and you're going to drill some pilot holes, and we're going to use drywall screws to connect everything. So I'm going to plug in the drill. I often like to have a power strip here. I took the power strip away. I'll probably move it back later. But technically we're not supposed to have a power strip out that the saw is plugged into. Okay, so what you're looking for to put everything together is 2-inch, should say 6 by 2 inch. 6 means it's a number 6 screw. That just tells you how wide, how thick it is, and so number 8 would be a little bit thicker than a number 6. You're going to use I'm just realizing there's a pretty wide drill bit on here right now. The drill bit and the wood screw are the same thickness. In fact, the drill bit might even be wider than the drywall screw. So I'm going to change this out. Let me show you how to do that first. So in order to change out the drill bit, to switch it out, there's like this is a collar lock on here. There's 2 pieces to this whole end piece. So what you do is you hold the collar and then you turn the other part. And sometimes this is a little tricky to do. Yeah, it actually is. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this without pliers, which of course I don't see pliers here right now. So we're going to go with this. We're going to use this, but here's what we're going to do. When I do the pilot hole, I want to make sure that I'm going to hold these up together to show you how deep the pilot hole should be. So this thing, the drywall screw is 2 inches long. I want to have a pilot hole that's less than an inch, or right around an inch, so that there's going to be at least 1 inch of good wood that this drywall screw is going to connect into. Okay. Now, I'm gonna talk about how to find where the drywall screws go here. Basically, what's going to happen is they're going to kind of on the ends of the pieces, they're going to kind of cross like this. Now, this is inside the wood. I'm just showing you what it would look like from the top. So one piece is going to go, or one of these drywall screws is going to go right in the center. Sometimes what I do is I draw a line right on the top here to show where I want the drywall screw to go. Maybe I'll put a little arrow on here so you can see this is where one of the drywall screws is going to line up. It's right in the center of this piece, and it's right in the center over here. The line gives me a way to get it all in the right place. On the other side, so this is the side that's going to have one. Now, I'm just going to put this down for a second and talk about this a little bit more. On the other side, this side is going to have 2 screws that go in, and they're going to be located on a diagonal. So one screw is going to be up here, one screw is going to be down here, and what's going to happen is on this side, this screw is going to be right in the center of this piece. And so the 3 screws, let's see if I can do this, the 3 screws are going to, one is going to go between the other 2 in real physical space of the wood. Okay, again, this is something I'll show you when you're here in class. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and drill these pilot holes. So with the drill, there's a little gizmo here right next to the trigger. You want to push this gizmo to your left. If you're looking down this way, push it to the left, and that's going to make sure that when the drill bit is spinning, it's going to go in instead of out. So next thing I do here, I'm going to hold it right up to the end, and there's a little bubble level on the end here. It's actually not very effective. It doesn't really do much. But what you want to do is you want to make sure that when you drill this in, everything stays nice and level. If it goes too much like this, it'll go right out of the top. So you don't want it to angle up, you don't want it to angle down, because you could actually run into the metal here. You just want things to be nice and straight. Now again, I'm only going to go in about roughly 1 inch. So here we go. And I like to start kind of slow, just to get it going. Okay, so I did even a little bit less than 1 inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch. Now this is the lower one. Again, I'm on that diagonal line. I get it pretty well centered. Nice and slow to start it. Again, I've got about a 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch. So there's still a lot of good wood that hasn't been drilled out that this drywall screw is going to hold on to. Now I'm going to flip over to the other side. It looks like the cord, oh gosh, it looks like the cord doesn't quite reach. I'm going to have to get the extension cord real quick here. And sorry about the delay here, but it's going to be pretty quick. So you can plug in the extension cord down here. Well, this is actually good because now I can plug in both of my drills and I won't have to do this again. Okay, we're good to go. Now I've got a little more extension here. Now I'm going to line this up just like I said. Sometimes when I'm drilling, I'll put my hand on the piece that I'm drilling into, just so that nothing slips. Nice and slow. All right. Sometimes I wear safety goggles when I use a drill. Truth is, if you're just drilling wood and the drill is something that tends to not kick anything out, any pieces, if you feel safer using goggles, I totally get it. That's, you know, I don't want to be a bad role model, which I seem to be all the time. Okay, so now this drill had a bit that was used for just making a hole. This one has a Phillips screwdriver drill bit in the end. I'm just checking this to make sure that it's all tight. And the Phillips screwdriver head is what you use for these. Okay, now this is where it's even more important to hold this piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the piece lengthwise, and I'm actually going to move the camera slightly. Oh man, this video is all kinds of awkward. It's only awkward if I say so. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to use my my shoulder, just like I was shooting a gun, and I'm going to use this to put a little pressure on it. Now, when I get to this point, what I want to do is I want to make sure that the head of the drywall screw, which is flat, it should be flat against the wood. And so what you can do, you have to be careful. What I'm doing is I'm just tapping on the trigger just a tiny bit to make sure that it goes just flush with or even a tiny bit under the surface of the wood. So 1 down, 2 to go, so I'm going to switch over to this side. Sometimes instead, it's going to get even more awkward now, but this is real life. Sometimes instead of getting all the way down where I'm like face to face with this, I'll get the screw here, and what I'll do is I'll use my hip. So I'll put this right on my hip and get some weight on it. This is actually really important. It might seem a little goofy for me to be putting my hip on here, but for many of you who are a little bit smaller, I'm a little over 200 pounds, so you know I've got a lot of weight, you know, on my side. But so I just use my hip and I press until I get this to be flush. Okay, let me see if I can use my other hip and my other hand just to show what this is like. So bring this up here, and it's a little more awkward using my left hand, but I'm going to use my other hip, and there we go. As soon as you are flush, you're done. So one side is done. I'm going to loosen these up now and show you what I got. So that's what the side that has 2 screws, they're diagonally offset like that. The side that has 1 screw, it just went right in the middle. If I were to draw a picture on top to show, you know, this one goes this direction, these two go, one of them is going like this, the other one is going like this. Now, why is it important to have 2 in one and 1 in the other side? If you only had 1 in each side, then it's not going to be that kind of joint with just 1 and 1 isn't very effective in stopping things from being twisted. So when you have 2 in 1 like this, It makes everything more solid. Just trust me, I'm an engineer. I've thought this through, so that's how it works. All right, so the next corner is going to go like this. And I'm basically going to talk through how the rest of this goes without necessarily showing every single bit. We're up to 15 minutes here. Yeah. So I've got these blocks here that are used for supporting the ends. So I'm pulling this block out here so that when I set this piece down in the channel, in the corner maker gizmo, oh, I can see where one of these pieces is warped. I forgot that I have a warped piece that I'm working with. It just makes it more fun. And now I'm going to slightly tighten this up. This is what I just put in here is a long side, so it has to connect to a short side. If I connect a long side to a long side, it just doesn't make any sense. So I'm going to get this close. Oops, going the wrong way here. I'm going to match these two so that they're good and tight at the end. Tighten this up. Really crank on it. Tighten this one. Now I'll talk through this again. I'm going to have two on this side that are going to go like this. I'll have one on this side. It's going to go down that direction. I'm not going to make any, sometimes what I'll do too, I didn't mention this before, sometimes on the end piece here, I'll make a little picture where I want to, exactly where I want to put the point of the screw, so I know, so I've got a target to go for. That usually helps. And I'll just do that. I'll do the same thing on this side. So I've got a little bullseye there where I want things to go. Drill the pilot holes. I'll speed things up just a tad here. Make sure things are level horizontally. Number two. Other side. Okay, other drill. I've got my three drywall screws all ready to go. I'm going to put this down, and I'm going to use my hip, and also I'm holding this steady so that things don't, so that, because sometimes what happens is when I'm drilling this in, it'll push this one away. So that's why, that's another reason why I kind of pull some pressure there. Okay, I've got two more screws here. Get this one started, and that sound right there, I just want to, like, if you ever hear this sound, that is the sound of the tip of the drill coming out and not making good contact with the top of the drywall screw. So if you ever hear that, stop and make sure that you're not spinning this too fast, because sometimes that's what happens. You have to use your finger and get control of this so that it doesn't go too fast. It's even worth just practicing getting this to move slowly like this. This is about the speed that you should be going at when you are drilling this in. So here we go, putting my hip on here. I'm gonna hold this steady. There we go. So that's the next corner. And I think we're just about at the point where I'm gonna let you all go. It just continues on here. I'm probably gonna have to, let's see. I'm gonna support the end here. Now, one thing that I'll show you, I need to have a third piece out here. Let me move this drill bit. So now I've got three blocks. If your wood is straight, it should line up just perfectly on top of the block. Now I'm gonna get this set up. I just want to get everything set here before I let you all go. Another long piece here, and get it all together here. And push these pieces down. Oops, pulled that right out. And push this up here. Everything is nice and solid in the channel. There's no pieces of debris or wood or anything in there. And now push everything together tightly. Crank on this so that everything's very tight. Okay, so now you know what happens next. I draw some pictures on there. I sink everything in. One thing that I wanted to show you, and I don't want you all to panic when this happens, but notice that over here, sorry, you all are going to get dizzy if I'm not careful here. This one piece is a little bit higher than the other, and they don't perfectly match when everything is connected here. Oh, now I can see it better. All right, so this piece is higher than this piece. They don't perfectly match. Part of that, well, what's going to happen when you cut your wood, these will never perfectly match. This fourth corner, there's going to be some kind of a gap here. In this case, because two of the pieces are slightly warped, this is going to be exaggerated. So this is a worse scenario than what most of you are going to find at the end of your, on your fourth corner. So there we go. That's how this all happens. And then, let me get down here. So then from this point here, the last thing that you do is you're going to use a little bit of sandpaper and slightly sand down, well, I'll show you over here. You slightly sand down the corner where you're going to be stretching your canvas. So over here, it's this corner right here. You're just going to sand this just a tiny bit, because when you pull your canvas and you stretch on top of the 2x2s, you don't want these to poke through your canvas if you have a really super sharp end here. So it doesn't take much sanding. Just a few seconds of just doing this will be enough. Do the same thing over here. Just a little bit of that. Because the wood is already pretty well rounded, you don't have to worry about sanding these at all. So after this is all completed, what you're going to do is you're going to put it on top of your canvas the same way that you did when you had your pre-made stretcher frames. The nice thing about this is when you use the stapler and when you pull the canvas on here, you can pull the canvas really tight. This frame can take a lot of pressure, so you can just really crank on it, whereas with the pre-made stretcher frames, they were a lot more fragile and you couldn't do that. Hopefully I've covered everything here. I want you to be comfortable especially comfortable when you're using the saw. So please watch the saw video before you do this. And if you have any hesitation, or if you have a lot of hesitation, I know the first time you use a saw like this, there's always going to be just a little bit of, a tiny bit of fear. I think it's going to help by cutting the masonite panels first. That's going to get you kind of accustomed to what it feels like to use the saw. It's a little more complex when you make the 45-degree angles for the larger stretcher frame. Okay, I think this is it. Just kind of a teaser on the 6 pieces that you're going to be making, the 6 small panels. The way this is going in my mind right now, I want one of the pieces that you do to be a type of color field, and I want it to have a color field, which basically means like a flat or very, very slight gradation of color. So color field, but also with something that interrupts the color field. So I'll talk about that. That could be a moment of something that's more realistic, or just some kind of small detail. So that's going to be one piece. At least one of the pieces, I want you to experiment with making some kind of a pattern. So in this case, you're going to be using a stencil or some kind of method to make a precise pattern. usually using your brush, and like let's say that you want to paint like polka dots. If you only use your brush and you try to make polka dots on the piece, for instance, it doesn't really make a very accurate pattern. It makes a kind of a loose, lumpy, awkward pattern. Not that there's necessarily anything wrong with that in general, but I want us all to kind of play by the rules. So when it comes to pattern, I want it to be precise. The collage pieces, I think what I'm saying about using pattern and using color field, I think that those can also apply with the inkjet transfer. You can still use things like creating a color field or creating some kind of a pattern in those as well. And like I said, I'll have a little more instruction with this. What I basically want to do with these 6 pieces is I want to show some examples from contemporary art for you to be thinking about as you develop the pieces, as you dive into your own process. So that you've got a target to be thinking about. Yeah, I think that's it. So expect another email after I get these posted. I'll put them on Blackboard and give you links to it on an email as well, and then the actual the next step in the abstraction process. I'll give that to you hopefully this evening. I realized my last email, I had been telling you guys that I want you to not give up on this class and to stay on top of things. And then I was the one who, I'm making this video on Sunday afternoon when it was supposed to happen Saturday morning or Friday night. It's been kind of a crazy weekend for me, and y'all know what that feels like. But yeah. All right, so adieu, and I'll see you Monday and Wednesday.